Okay, welcome back to Take a Shot. This is Chris, and basically right now I'm going to come at you with my thoughts after the Game 7, game between the Celtics and the 76ers. So I was celebrating Mother's Day with my mom, and I was with the rest of my family, so I did not watch this game live. I came back to it after I got back around, I don't know, it's been a couple hours, and I was like, okay, and I wasn't checking my phone, so I didn't have it spoiled for me. And I just was like, I feel like we're the better team. We're at home. I was like, hopefully that's enough. And the first half was like really close, and I was thinking like even though Jason Tatum was playing really well, I was like, we can't we can't let this team just like hang around. I was like, we got to literally like put our foot on our throats and like go out and prove because I do think the Celtics are a deeper team, and I think honestly, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown as a tandem, in my opinion, are better than Joel Embiid and James Harden. And that's the thing. Joel Embiid, I think, in a bubble, is a better player than both of them. You could make an argument Tatum could be better than Embiid, but I think Joel Embiid, he just won the MVP. I think with his abilities, I think he's got a higher upside. But Joel Embiid, just in the playoffs, I think he wears down and he gets tired. Which, like, I'm not faulting him because I'm not a professional athlete, so I know it's tough. But like, it's a lot of weight that he's got to carry around. Like he's not the quickest, so like it's tough on him. And anyway, the Celtics made it tough on him. They contested a lot of shots. 76ers just didn't have it today. And then the other thing was Jason Tatum he was rolling. I mean, 51 points. Honestly, if they would have kept force feeding him, he probably could have had more. I think he wanted to either tie or break the all-time Celtics record for most points scored in the playoffs. He got 51. John Havlicek, I guess, had 54, and that's the record. But my takeaways, Celtics are my team. I don't think anyone knows that. I don't think I've profounded that and put that on the channel. But Celtics are my favorite team. I got into basketball around like 2005, 2006. Celtics weren't great then. And then when they got Kevin Garnett was my favorite basketball player. His intensity, the way he treated the game. Uh, I've only played like pickup basketball, whatever, but like I try to play not Kevin Garnett intensity, but just like, you know, I'm not backing down from anybody. I'm not like, I'm going to be physical and not like I'm going to foul you, but just like, you're not going to run me over. I'm not going to flop. You're not going to get any easy crap from me. Like, I'm going to make you work for everything you got. And anyway, I love that from KG. So that really drew me into being a Celtics fan. They won that first championship in '08. Been a Celtics fan ever since. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not the same. Like, the love that I have for the team is not the same as that Big Three team because that was the best for me. But it's still like, I mean, I love this team more than any other. And watching them the last couple of years, it's been tough because it's like, the old, so when I say the old core, when they restocked after, like they missed 1 year in the playoffs. They didn't make the playoffs in 2014. 2013 was the last year with KG and Paul Pierce. Ray Allen had already gone to Miami at this point. They lost in the first round of the Knicks. 2014, they missed the playoffs altogether. 2015, they come back, and this was supposed to be completely rebuilding. They managed to make the playoffs after trading for Isaiah Thomas. They lose in the first round. I think they get swept by Cleveland. And then 2016, I think they make it. They might have lost in the first round to Atlanta, I believe. And then this is when it starts happening because they draft Jaylen Brown, so they get better off that. Then they get Al Horford in free agency because he's like, hey, I like what you guys are building there. And then they make the Eastern Conference Finals in 2017. They really were no match for Cleveland. They still had Isaiah Thomas. This was right after his sister had died. And then they trade Isaiah Thomas, get Kyrie Irving. Kyrie plays in the regular season but doesn't show up in the playoffs. I think he was hurt. And they make the Eastern Conference Finals anyway. Game 7, 2018. That team, that team was stacked. Had Gordon Hayward, but Gordon Hayward had gotten hurt. But yeah, basically they had like Jay Crowder. I'm trying to think of Marcus Morris, bunch of guys. That team, Avery Bradley. That team had a lot of depth. Or no, Bradley was gone at that point. But yeah, basically they had a lot of depth, and they finally like. Because that was LeBron's last year in the East before he went to the Lakers. And like I thought that team was close because they had Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum was in his rookie year. 2019, that's when they lost to the second round of the Bucks. They won like game 1, and then they just Kyrie kind of like self-destructed, and then he was out. He was on his way to Brooklyn. 2020 was the bubble season. They make it to the Eastern Conference Finals against Miami, which is what we have again. That was I most remember that for having Kemba Walker and then being frustrated because Kemba literally like couldn't guard anybody, and then if he's not like knocking down shots, you're like, dude, Kemba, like you don't serve a purpose right now. And I get Danny Ainge was he thought he had to fill Kyrie's shoes, and he wasn't sure if Marcus Smart could actually be a real point guard. And Marcus Smart really isn't a point guard. He's a combo guard. He's like a Draymond Green in the sense of he does all the little stuff well, but he's not a master at anything. Like Marcus Smart, as much as people love his defense, he flops too much. His offense, sometimes he's hot shooting, other times he's stone cold. He doesn't always make the greatest decisions. He turns the ball over. Anyway, that 2020 season, lost to Miami. They went on to the finals. They lost in 6 to the Heat. But anyway, I was like, all right, we're back in the conference finals 2 out of 3 years. Actually, 3 out of 4 years. So I was like, doing good. Then 2021, they lose in the first round to Brooklyn. They win 1 game, I believe, and that was it. And I think I was slightly busy that year. I don't remember what was going on 2 years ago, but I didn't like follow that series closely. But at that point, I was starting to lose hope as far as like what is this really going to look like. After that, Kemba was gone, and Brad Stevens is like, I'm going to move on to being, take Danny Ainge's job. Last year, they make it to the finals with Ime Udoka. That team, they were up 2-1 in the finals against Golden State, but it's Golden State. Steph Curry's just reached a level where even if you try to guard him off the 3, he can just drive or dish it and make people better. So he's earned that where it's just a tough matchup. They're probably the hardest team to guard from like a cardio standpoint because you just got to keep running. So yeah, they lose that. Jason Tatum, I know, didn't have a great finals. And yeah, so this year, what I thought they could be, they added Malcolm Brogdon. They got Gallinari. Gallinari hasn't played at all this year. He got hurt. But adding Malcolm Brogdon, not really losing anything important, you would think this team is like, all right, like you're ready to get back to the finals. And this year, sometimes was a bit of a struggle. First round, like they just lose games. You're like, I know you guys are better than this. You're not playing at your potential all the time. Being down 3-2 to Philly, I was like, you guys can't mess around. I was like, I still think you're the better team, but you can't mess around. Well, finally, they put it together. They win Game 6. Jason Tatum had a terrible first half, whatever. He finally puts together in the fourth quarter. Jaylen Brown did a good job. Marcus Smart played a great Game 6. Game 7, they get it back to Boston, and Jason Tatum just goes off. And anyway, all I'm trying to say is now it's Boston-Miami again. 3rd Eastern Conference Finals in 4 years where it's that matchup for both those teams. Only 2021 did they not do that. And yeah, I guess my takeaways right now is I still like the Celtics' chances because I think overall they're a deeper team, especially since Tyler Hero's still out, Oladipo's out for Miami. So I still like the Celtics' chances, but if you're asking me like how many games do I think this series is going to go, the way Miami's playing, I think this is like same as last year. I think it probably goes to 7 games, except this time Boston has the home court advantage. Last year was Miami was the 1 seed, but I think it goes to 7 probably because even though I think the Celtics are better, I don't think they're that much better. The way Jimmy Butler's been playing, Bam is not going to be the easiest guy to guard with Al Horford, I don't think, because Bam's he's quicker than Joel. He's not as like versatile, and he's not near the shot blocker that Joel is, but he's a versatile player, and he can kind of get into the lane and stretch a little weirder and longer and like awkward angles. So yeah, and Miami's got some really good 3-point shooting, like Max Strus and Duncan Robinson. So, and Kevin Love. I think this will be an interesting series. Like I said, I would say right now, if I have to pick, I'm taking Celtics in 7. Let's go to the Western Conference Finals. We have Lakers Nuggets rematch of the bubble as well. I do think that's cool that the bubble bracket from 2020 has been brought back again this time. Last in the bubble, home court, there was no such thing as home court. They can call it that, but I don't even think they painted the floor certain colors. Maybe they did, but I don't feel like they did. There was no point. But yeah. So right now, Lakers don't have home court advantage, but they haven't had home court advantage the last 2 series, and they were able to win Game 1 both times to steal it right away. If you're asking me like right now what I think, this Nuggets team, so that 2020 team had Jeremy Grant on it, and Paul Millsap was basically like on his way out, like he didn't have a whole lot left in the tank. This team now has Michael Porter Jr. at a higher level than what he was then. Aaron Gordon to replace Paul Millsap, which Aaron Gordon is younger than what Paul Millsap was then, so that's better. And then they got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who I've never been the biggest fan of because watching him on the Lakers, even though they won a title, I don't really feel like he was all that responsible. Yes, he played some good defense, but just so like, all right, KCP, need you to make this 3, and he just brick. He played good in this last series, especially that closeout game. He really played well. He had like 20 points in the first half, finished with 21. He didn't do much in the second half, but defensively he's been great, getting steals. And there's one other piece I thought. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I was thinking Denver's got somebody else, but Denver I think has a better bench this time around. So it's going to be a tough challenge. I feel like with the Lakers, it's a different roster. They're younger than what they were because in that 2020 that bubble team, they were a veteran squad. Danny Green, Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee. Who am I missing? I know they had more play. Rondo, obviously. So yeah, this time around, I feel like it's going to be completely different. LeBron is not at the level that he was a couple years ago. So it's basically Anthony Davis, the way he played that closeout game against the Warriors a couple nights ago, Game 6, where, hey, I can get you 15 points or whatever, but he's like, I am focused. I am dominating the glass. I'm getting all these rebounds. I'm blocking shots. That's what they need. They need him to do that. If he can do that and then like occasionally just, hey, get your touches when you can, make your shots when you can, I think they'll be fine because as long as they don't get dominated in the boards, it's like they're going to do fine because AD, we saw in the bubble, he can guard Nikola Jokic pretty much like nobody else can. So I think that's it. If you can slow down Jokic, Jamal Murray comes and goes. There's games where he's unstoppable, and there's other games where like you're like, oh, he had 6 points in the first half. I think we'll be okay. So I guess my tiebreaker, you just look at those tandems because I think the benches or the rest of the squads are kind of equal in my opinion. Denver, you could say slightly better, but bench players they come and go. D'Angelo Russell, he can get hot, but basically for me, yeah, the tiebreaker is Jokic, Anthony Davis. Jokic is the better player because he's more consistent, but Anthony Davis still has that ceiling of like, I can play defense better than you. And then Jamal Murray versus LeBron, it's kind of like who's going to have a bigger impact. I think that's the tiebreaker is if Jamal Murray goes off more times than LeBron has, like I would say 20 and 12, that's kind of what the deciding factor is because if LeBron can dominate the boards again and be the facilitator, that's another thing. They started the last series against the Warriors where LeBron was still playing off ball and he was like, hey, Austin Reeves, you take it. D'Lo, you take it, whatever. Well, they ended up switching that to more LeBron had the ball in his hands and he would get the offense orchestrated. That's my thing is I think D'Angelo Russell is good for he can do some pick and roll stuff and he can like pick, he can pull back for a shot. But if that's not falling or that's not working early on where you're not getting a whole lot of success, I think you got to make that adjustment kind of like in the second quarter of like, okay, LeBron, I want you to have the ball in your hands and then just take us there, and we'll try to get you rest when we can. Because that's the thing. LeBron has been able to play, in my opinion, better defense this year in the playoffs than I've seen probably since like 2018. And the reason for that is I think LeBron, he no longer has to play and dribble the ball up every time and play the whole offense. The whole offense doesn't have to pretty much just be him. He can sit back, take some plays off on offense and be like, I'll conserve myself for like, I got to guard my man, I got to run around these screens, whatever, or I got to, contest at the rim and try to really fight for rebounds, get rebounds. So, my takeaway from that series with Lakers Warriors, I just was so happy the Warriors didn't win. I hate the Warriors. I respect Steph Curry. I get tired of Clay holding up four fingers anytime anyone wants to give him crap. It's like, Clay, you had less than 10 points a game in the last 3 games that you had. It's like, you can't just sit there and be like, I'm a 4-time champion. You are a 4-time champion, but you've never been the best player on any of those championship teams. You won 2 of those rings as the 3rd best player. So that's like Chris Bosh walking around and be like, can't tell me nothing. It's like, it's not the same thing. Anyway, so how I think that series is going to go, I'm picking the Lakers, and I'd probably have to go 7 again. Maybe 6, because maybe with them, if they can, in their head, the way they've been doing it, steal one of the first couple games in Denver and then just never lose on home court, and we'll be good. So maybe Lakers win in 6. I just think this challenge, these are really going to be good conference finals because no one is like this clear cut, like, oh, you can't contest those teams. Celtics, Heat, like I said, I think Celtics are overall a better roster. But if you don't come to play, like, you're going to get beat. And Miami has shown that to Milwaukee, which I was so happy they won because that's the other team I really can't stand is the Bucks. Don't have anything against most of the Bucks players. It's just Giannis. I get tired of watching a guy Euro step, drive through 4 people that should be an offensive charge, yells and gets a foul call. He gets like half his points from the free throw line. Anyway, that's another topic. But yeah, just to close this out, if I have to pick right now, I'm picking Lakers in the West, Celtics in the East. Good Western Conference Finals. I think they'll be great. I don't think we're going to get a 5-game series. I don't think that's happening. I think each of these is going to at least be 6 games. Great conference finals. And then we finally get to the finals. My pick right now is Lakers versus Celtics, which in my opinion, as a Celtics fan, there is nothing better in basketball than Lakers Celtics in the finals. It's the best that you can get. It's to these traditions, to these teams. It's all about winning, and this. It's also just the aesthetics of how it looks: green, white versus gold and purple. It looks awesome to see these teams compete. I mean, obviously, like I grew up, in the mid 2000s watching basketball, and I got to see the '08 finals, the 2010 finals. So it'd be nice to get those finals again. And if I had to pick a winner right now, I'd take the Celtics. But there are things that worry me, which is like, even if you put Al Horford on Anthony Davis and you say, hey, you were able to guard Embiid, see if you can guard Anthony Davis, it's another thing to be able to be like, yeah, we have an answer for LeBron, because the bottom line is you just got to try to outscore him. So like Jason Tatum would have to go off kind of like what he did tonight. But anyway, that's future, like me trying to predict what's going to happen. But as of right now, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy these. My worst case scenario would be Nuggets versus Heat in the finals, just because I'd be rooting for the other teams. If that happens, I'd be rooting for Miami to win it, just because Jimmy Butler, I believe, is that dude that's like worked his butt off. I mean, Jokic works his butt off, but the difference is like I see Jokic, and like when he's down there in the post sometimes, he'll just start doing this with his arm and start like flapping his arms like they're wings and be like, oh, he's preventing me from getting somewhere. It's like, dude, stop flopping. He doesn't full on flop and fall to the ground. He just flops his arms, and he's like, oh, how do you expect me to play? So that gets tiresome. Jimmy, they wouldn't be this far without Jimmy. They know that. And I'm like, if Jimmy Butler, if he could like be like, hey, this is my year, and he wins it, I'm like, dude, good for him. Because if he wins a ring, I think you can make an argument even without a ring, he might make it to the Hall of Fame. But with a ring, I'm like, you got to put Jimmy Butler in the Hall of Fame. If you can be the best guy on a championship team, I think you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. That's my opinion. I can't think of any guy ever. I'm not talking about who wins Finals MVP. Andre Iguodala won Finals MVP. He's not a Hall of Famer to me. But if you can be the best player on your championship team, I think you could retire probably right there and probably be a Hall of Famer. So, yeah, this would be big for Butler. For Jokic, if the Nuggets were to go on and win this, it's big for him. Like I said, I respect his game. I just get tired of the flopping, but I respect his game. I just not really been a fan of the Nuggets since they changed their color scheme, got rid of Carmelo. They got rid of Carmelo. He wanted to be gone. I'm just saying, like, those powder blues, if they could ever get the powder blues back and the yellow and the gold, do that, because that's such a sweeter look than what you're rocking now, because it looks lame. But anyway, even if the Nuggets won, it's not the end of the world. I'd be like, well, Jokic, great dude. He's won 2 MVPs, like in the sense of like, good on him. He finally got one. And it would kind of, there's been some hesitation the last like probably 10 years where people are like, do you really want to take a center in the draft? Like, centers, we always expect this much out of them, and they don't deliver, and they get hurt and all that kind of stuff. If Jokic wins the championship, then people have to be like, all right, maybe we're wrong, and maybe drafting centers, like if 3 guys are coming out and they're all kind of rated the same, like upside, and one of them happens to be 7 feet tall and plays center, you go with the center because it's more reliable to get buckets that way. Obviously, everyone's not going to be Jokic with his gift of passing and his vision and his just touch that he has. But that being said, him and Embiid were the top 2 guys in MVP race, in my opinion, this year in both centers, and they're both the best at their position. So I think center is still a viable position. I just think people need to learn footwork and they need to learn post moves. It's like, if you're just going to be a Rudy Gobert rim runner that tries to block some shots, yeah, the center position is going to be dead. But if you can actually post up, get points down low, which I never understand. I'm just going on a basketball rant at this point, but I never understand this philosophy of post up. Like Rick Carlisle told Kristaps Porzingis, posting up's not a good shot anymore. It's like, you're 7'4", 7'3", something like that is Porzingis. And I'm like, yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot of guys that can guard you, especially when you're like 6 feet from the basket, if that. It's like, you need to be posting up. Learn how to post up. I'm not saying you have to post up every time. If Porzingis is on the Wizards and he's going up against Joel Embiid, yeah, maybe don't try to post him up. Try to bring him out wide or bring him out in the perimeter and shoot your shots. But this notion that the post up should be dead and it's just not a good shot anymore, I'm like, no, there's a balance. Post up's still a good shot. You just don't need to do like in the 2000s or maybe in the 90s where you'd have like point guard would bring the ball up and you'd basically have 2 guys at each side of the wing and then you'd have 2 guys on each end of the block, a center and a power forward kind of on each side. You don't need that anymore. You don't need both guys on the block, just one. is my opinion. But the amount of good buckets that you get, double teams that you draw, which leaves a guy open. You also, by drawing a double team, you leave room for cutting, which is more easy buckets or foul calls. So I just think if you got a dominant big man, do that. Now, if you don't, if you're like Golden State and you're like Kevon Looney's your center and he's not great offensively, yeah, Golden State can play that way, which we just want our big setting screens and occasionally rolling to the rim and trying to get rebounds. That's it. But yeah. Anyway, that's my rant. I guess let me finish up on this. If the Lakers win, LeBron gets his 5th title. That'd be cool because now he's on the same step as like Kobe, Magic, Tim Duncan, and as far as how many championships, he's one ahead of Steph, so people can stop the Steph is better thing. Because like I said, LeBron's every team he's won the championship on, he's been the best player. Now this year, if Anthony Davis can dominate the rebounds the way that he's been doing, if he does that, like let's say next round, then in the finals, and LeBron just kind of does this 20 points, 12 rebound like stat line, Anthony Davis can be the finals MVP, and that could be the first time we'd be like, hey, LeBron finally passes the torch to somebody else, and he was not the best player on the championship team. As of right now, LeBron's been more consistent. Still has had a lot of games where he wasn't great, but you don't normally go like, LeBron, like, where were you? You just didn't show up. I think he's had one game in the whole playoffs. AD, for a while, it was just like one game good, one game bad. One game good, one game bad. He kind of stopped that with the last couple with Golden State. But anyway, Anthony Davis winning a 2nd ring, that's a big deal. Like, you're supposed to be a top 75 all-time player. You got 2 rings. Then people are like, yeah, you really like are up there. Even if you won them with LeBron, you won them in like year 20 LeBron. Like, that's impressive. Because Anthony Davis, if you had Anthony Davis from a couple years ago with LeBron from a couple years ago, unstoppable. Which is why they were the 1 seed in 2019-2020. But take 2013 LeBron, which is probably I'm not saying it's the most dominant I've ever seen LeBron, but it's like the most versatile skill set. In 2013, he was knocking down his free throws and he was knocking down 3-point shots like there were nothing. His shot was on point. I felt like there was no shot he couldn't make in 2013. That was the one where like the Spurs were like, we're going to back off and let LeBron beat us from deep, and he was beating them. But yeah, put him with Anthony Davis, crazy. Anyway, there's nobody else really on the Lakers that I guess I'd be super. D'Angelo Russell, if he won a ring, that'd be cool. I can't really think of anybody else that I'd be like, oh my gosh, so happy for him. I mean, like, I don't know. Rui Hachimura, good kid, would like if he got a ring. But anyway, lastly for my Celtics, because I talked about the Heat, Bam getting a ring would be cool. Jimmy Butler. Kevin Love getting another ring would be cool because he really has been helping out on this team. Kyle Lowry getting a 2nd ring. I kind of forgot to talk about Kyle Lowry. He's been helping out. He may not have been starting, but that's mainly because of an injury, but he's been good. With the Celtics, I think the championship would, in my opinion, of these 4 teams, Denver would probably be the most because they've never seen a championship. They've never even been to the finals. But aside from that, the Celtics, Jason Tatum finally being able to be like, I got a ring. Jaylen Brown being able to get a ring and then being like, hey, don't break us up. We're good together. Or if Jaylen Brown, I've heard rumors that he wants to be on his own team. If you win a championship, then you could start going, okay, man, we did that. Like, we got a ring. We delivered. Now I want to try to go do my own thing. I don't think anybody would be like crazy mad about that. They'd be like, yeah, man, like you earned it. But Tatum, this would put him, like I said, this basically, he still would have to do it longevity-wise, but I would say this would start putting his career up there with Paul Pierce, where people go, you know, shooter, guy that can go get his own shot, can break people down and drive by them, got a great mid-range shot, got a great 3-point shot. That basically, his game reminds me a lot of Paul Pierce. I think he's slightly taller. Paul was a little thicker. And I might be wrong on that. Paul might be taller. I don't know. Paul was kind of deceptively big, but Paul had, like, you know, they call it old man game, where he could kind of like lull someone to sleep and then just be like, oh, boom, like over your head. Tatum's more explosive, but it's not by a whole lot. And Tatum's got a really smooth game. He's just a little longer, in my opinion. I think he's a little bit of a better defender because he can block some shots. But yeah, this would be a different way to win a championship. Go around 2 guys, not make a big 3, but the person I'd be the most happy for is Al Horford. I'd be ecstatic if Al Horford was able to actually finally win a ring, because it's like there were times once he left Boston the first time, went to Philly, I was like, poor Al. And then I'm like, that sucks, but I'm like, we can't pay him that much. And I'm happy he's come back and he's been great defensively. He made a few threes today. That's good. But yeah, I'd be really happy for him. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's all I got to say. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We should be getting back together this upcoming weekend here in about a week to record another Take a Shot podcast, give our reactions to after the draft, how the NFL basically what our projections of like which team we're going to have like winning, each division, get the wild cards, and then basically what we think as of right now who makes it to the Super Bowl and how they get there and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, looking forward to that. I'll try to give you guys some more basketball coverage. And then obviously we got MMA to talk about at a certain point. We'll probably cover that next time as well. I'm right at about 25 minutes. This is Chris. Take a shot. Have a good one.